Good afternoon, everyone. Just going live, so I'm just going to give people a few minutes to join us, and I'm going to check audio while we do that. I hope everyone's week has gone well. This week, I went to the cinema for the first time in forever. We went to see Escape Room 2. Kids were up at their grandparents', which was an extremely nice treat for us. It was a decent film, better than the last film. About 18 months ago, I went to see Sonic, which was a pleasant surprise, only in that I expected Sonic to be a complete disaster. So Escape Room 2, yeah, a bit predictable, but it was nice to actually be out. So I'm just going to jabber on here a bit just to allow people to come in and also check to see how everyone else is doing. And while I do that, I'm just going to check that audio is working. So if you just bear with me for a moment. Yeah, audio seems to be working absolutely fine. I will obviously try and see comments as we go through. So if you leave comments in wherever you're watching, we are live on Zoom, we are live on Facebook, and we are live on YouTube today. So any comments as we go through today's presentation on why process maps are an essential foundation to your business? That is what we'll be looking at today. So I'm just checking everything is good for us to start. And it definitely appears to be. So, like I said, if you've got questions, please put them in the chat. If I don't see any questions while we go through this, I will come back to them and I will message you either directly by leaving comments in the chat itself or on YouTube. And so we will start. So, for people that don't know, depending on where you're viewing this from, I'm Ian Warrender from Warrender Technical Solutions. WTS is here as a business support function, providing support for organization. That's how your business is structured from top down, making sure that you don't have blockages in the way that information is spread throughout your organization. Processes, which is obviously a large element to what I do, and we'll be talking a lot about process maps, but it's also the efficiency of the processes. Planning, and so for today, every Friday from 2 to 3, I go through a planning session. You can find that on Eventbrite. I will give you some details of that at the end. And this is not looking at what you should plan, but how you should plan, bringing those long-term plans into your monthly, weekly, daily plans so that you're not just focusing on the now, you're also looking at the long term. Make sure you get through everything that's essential, such as the client work, which pays the bills, but also things like marketing that brings in the future clients. Systems for small businesses in particular, there are so many applications and apps out there, and WTS is here to try and help to make sure that you're not just spending money on lots of systems that do small things, that we look at to see if there's systems that can combine some of the elements that you need to try and cut the cost of your business down and make sure that you've got something that fit for purpose. Administration, that is a large part of what any business do, and it's often a bottleneck, and it's something that WTS can help with. Why should you be listening to me today or anytime? Well, I've got a first-class degree in management of engineering technologies, but more importantly than that, I've got 15 years experience in business improvements. I've been through several different changes within businesses, And it's those changes which I would like to go through with you today. So why do you need a strong foundation to a business? Well, when we look at businesses, when we look at how businesses are structured, there's two ways to really do it. We can have a ad hoc approach, and that's where you just start doing your business, you learn something, you add to it, and you keep building on, in an ad hoc type of way. The problem with the ad hoc approach is, although you're going to get initial growth, you're going to get initial growth as long as you're working on your business, you're going to get that growth anyway. But you're going to find that your growth is limited because some of the key foundations aren't going to be there. You're going to end up being very busy. You're going to end up chasing issues. You're going to end up checking a lot of things. You're going to end up going around in loops, and you're not going to move the business forward. And when you become busy and chaotic like that, your business can collapse in on itself in terms of the amount of time it takes to do simple functions. Where a business built on a strong foundation, one of which is process maps, but it's not the only one. We talked a bit about before about some of the other elements WTS do in terms of the organization structure and the systems. But it allows you to not just have growth, but continued growth, because what you have is something that's scalable. And that strong foundation allows that scalability that sometimes is lacking in a lot of what people do. Hi, Jen. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate the welcome. So, process maps. First of all, what is a process map? A process map is a flow of activities and data. Basically, it's the steps that you take to get from one element of your business to the end of that. And you're going to have different process maps within the business. You're going to have different process maps. You're going to have one for the core. You're going to have one for marketing. You're going to have one for sales, each of which is going to be in its own right, standalone, but also need to interact with each other. And it's that flow of information, resources, and people that the process map is there to include. So all process maps, you're going to have a start point, something that kicks off whatever the process is that you're talking about, something that kicks off that. And with that, you're going to have some identifiable inputs, things that's going into your business, be that resources, and that's people resources, as well as physical resources such as time as well. And those are going to go in, and there's going to be some decisions. Now, we're going to touch on decisions a lot more in the near future, but there is going to be some critical decisions that are going to allow your business to function. And with those decisions and with those inputs, there's going to be some outputs. Now, these aren't the final things. These are the stages that will allow you to get to whatever the final element is. So with a physical product, for example, you're going to have stages of parts of the product being made that will then go into the final product. But even on a service business such as myself, there are reports, and those elements of the reports are built up over time, and that information is then brought together and passed on to the client. You're going to have steps. This is an obvious part of process maps. Process maps go through the various different steps that they do. But equally, you've got your end point. You've got something that defines when that process, whether it's an element of the business or the business as a whole, when that comes to an end. And these elements, as seen on the screen, these are the standard notations that you'll see in any process map. But the important thing that I'd like to get across today is, although these are standard notations that you'll see if I came across and did a process map for you, just starting the nature of creating those process maps is the important part. Be that on post-it notes on a whiteboard. Post-it notes are ideal because they're easy to move around. You can say, actually, I don't want to do that step, I want to do that step here. But equally, just pen and paper on start with a blank piece of paper and just start mapping out your business. It will give you some visibility, as we will talk about as we go through today. So I mentioned briefly about the decision points, and I've put here binary decision points. Binary is just another word for two options. You got yes, no, you go, stop. Binary is obviously used in programming, if anyone has done that in the past. But reason why I say you got binary is, take this option here. The client can choose between metal, hardwood, and plastic. You could put this in a process map like this. It's not the way I would do it. You could say the material, what material did the client select? Did they select metal? Did they select hardwood, plastic, and go on from there? The reason why I always suggest having that binary decisions is because it gives you a few other options. See here, it's binary. You still got this three same questions. The client select metal, yes, go to step A. No, ask the next question. Hardwood, step B. No, go to next question. But here, we've actually opened up a fourth avenue, because what happens if the client hasn't selected any of the standard materials? Your response could be, well, actually, we only have those three materials available, at which point you need to go back to the client and say, sorry, these are the only three. But that in itself is a process. That is still some steps that happen within the business to make sure that the standard materials are selected. It could be that you look at what the material is that the client's requesting and you give them the nearest equivalent, and you have a process on why certain materials are equivalent to the hardwood or the metal. But equally could be that you allow yourself to be opened up to having some bespoke material, some step D that you follow if something out of the non-standard happens. And this is something we're going to come on to a lot more when we talk about reasons why process maps are an important integral part, foundation part to your business. Because detailing the non-standard is critical as soon as you start opening up your business to outside elements. So whether that's you're bringing in a VA to come in and do an element to your business, or you start to have staff in. As soon as you do that, being able to tell the people that aren't you what to do on the non-standard suddenly becomes a powerful message. In your business, when you do something as a sole owner, something non-standard happens, you rely on your experience. You don't often think about it in that way. Something non-standard happens, you just deal with it. But really, that dealing with it means that you're relying on your experience and you're making decisions based on wealth of experience. A VA staff coming into your business will not have that experience to rely on. But with a process map, you can give them the instructions of what to do at the non-standard. It may be a case that non-standard never happens and you simply put on the process map, refer back to yourself, and so you can make that decision. But there may be times when in your business where the things have gone non-standard, and you can say how you want that to be structured. So on to the main element of today about why process maps are essential. There's three reasons I'm going to go through today. There are many, many more than three, but we're going to focus on three key reasons, and we're going to either follow Bob or Bobby's story. For the sake of today, with the people watching, I'm going to follow Bobby's story. We're going to just follow Bobby's story and see where that takes us. And with Bobby, we're going to say that she's in her mid-30s. She got a degree while in her office job, let's say. And she's actually going to provide a service. And the service that she's going to provide is she's going to go into, let's think of something. She's going to provide some IT support. And so she spent the past 10 years in an office doing IT type job for a larger business. And she's going to go out and she's going to go on her own and provide IT support to small businesses. And she's got a degree, but she didn't have that when she started in IT. She did that while she was in the job. But the main thing to realize about Bobby is that she is a unique person. We're not detailing here about her upbringing. We're not talking here about her marital status, where she's got kids or anything like that. But we could detail Bobby down to the nth degree and show that she's completely different to anyone that you know, anyone I know. She's a unique person, and that's important. In her 10 years in IT in the large organization, there are steps that she's done on a job every single day in terms of how to actually function, how to actually do the IT repairs, how to identify what the problems are. But Bobby isn't going into business just to replicate what she did in the office. Bobby has some unique ideas that she wants to follow herself, that she thinks is going to make her business successful, and that she feels that is going to be important and something that she can move on the IT world with. And so the processes that she's planning to do for the core element of her business is going to be a mixture of her past experience and those new key ideas. But they don't look like this. She hasn't written them down on paper. She's not creating process maps because she's going by herself. These are just ideas that's inside her mind, inside her head, in terms of how she wants to run the business. And these are the core elements. This is going to be the core elements, something that Bobby's got lots of experience with. But anyone that starts a new business will know that those core elements aren't the entire thing that you'll do as a new business owner. You're going to have marketing, sales, you're going to have money to manage. And on those elements, Bobby's done some training courses. She's watched some tutorials. She's done some training to make sure that she's got a fair idea of how to do things. Now, with that training, she's going to have some certain takeaways. And those takeaways from the training are going to be her own. They're not going to be the same as somebody else, even somebody else that took the same training. She's going to take various ideas from those training that she saw and see what's important. But again, Bobby's a strong-willed person. She's in her mid-30s, and she's got some ideas of how she can make it work for her business. And so although the majority of the ideas for marketing, money, sales, etc., are going to be external from suggestions, if she's surrounded herself with some people that's been through this before and the training, but equally, she's going to have a new idea. She's going to want to do it in a particular way. Now, it's important to realize, again, that these aren't written process maps. These are just ideas in her head that she's got in terms of how she wants to run a business. Sure, for the training that she did, she might have some notes. She's probably got some things jotted down in terms of how she wants to do things. But they're not going to be formalized process maps. They're just going to be ideas in her head of, this is how I want to do the core business, this is how I want to do the marketing, and I've got some notes to remind us of how I want to do some key things that I'm not used to, because when she was in IT, she wouldn't have done any marketing for herself because, inside an office, people come to you with the issues. She's now going to have to go externally. All these are inside her head in terms of how she wants to work. Now, 18 months on, Bobby's had some missteps. She's had some successes. And as things move on, she's going to get some new experience. This isn't the same as the experience in yellow, which is from the office work that she did. This is experience relevant to what she's doing, to working for herself, to being external facing now. So over the past year, she's built up some new experiences. And those experiences are going to be across the board. They're going to be in the core elements because things will be different when you're working for yourself. They're going to be in particular in the elements that she wasn't used to on the marketing and the money side of it. And so over 18 months, as I said, she's learned some things because she's made some mistakes. She's had some positive actions where you still learn things and you still make some changes within the business. And the process maps inside Head still get a bit more complicated. But because things have gone well for Bobby, she's now actually wanting to expand. She's going to hire 3 new people to support her in a business. Now we're going to come back to Bobby very shortly. But first, because I've been talking a lot, I would like yourselves to do something. If you could grab a piece of paper, if you haven't got one yet, and a pencil. I'm assuming everyone watching this, whether on the live or afterwards on the recording, has had some drawing experience in their life, whether that's when they were 5-year-old and they had a picture put up on the fridge, or whether that was more recent and it may be something that you're an expert in and you're a professional artist. Well, I'm going to commission you all to draw me a picture, and I'm going to describe what to draw, and then I'm going to show you what you should have drawn. If people watching can just put in the chat either a picture of what you drew or a description, and we see how close you can get from my description to what you should have drawn. So let's start with a horizontal line about 2/3 up the page, 1/3 down, just a horizontal line across the page. Jen, if you're still watching, this will not be the same one that you did on the training that I did for Latte in Live, which was a absolute brilliant foundation stone myself for the training that I'm doing over this summer. This training is going to be repeated several times. So if you don't catch it all today, there will be other opportunities, and I'll come to that at the end. So horizontal line across the middle, 2/3 up, 1/3 down. And on the horizontal line, if you could draw a rectangle on the horizontal line. Now, either side of that rectangle that you drew, so you've got your horizontal line, got the rectangle on it, a triangle on either side. So you'll end up with 2 triangles, but a triangle on either side of that rectangle that you drew. Now we've got 2 triangles. You've got a rectangle. On the rectangle, between the 2 triangles, draw a semicircle. Now, below that, from the bottom of the page, going up to about halfway, draw a trapezium. For those that don't remember shapes, trapezium's basically a triangle without a top, just like that I've on screen now. So a trapezium, going up to about halfway up the page, that's a triangle without a top, for those that now, if you could top that trapezium that you just drew, the one I just showed on screen just briefly so that you could see where we're at, another rectangle, Similar sort of size to the one that you drew above. That should just be just past the halfway part of the page. Now, you've got your trapezium, you've got your rectangle. Now, the top of the rectangle that we just done, going off towards the outside of the page, and just a curved line, just slightly going upwards, but something, something a bit artistic, if you would like, but something just going from that rectangle to the edge of the page, just slightly sloping upwards, but, curved sort of line. Now, this always starts getting a bit more tricky because it depends on what you've got so far, depending on where you can fit things in. But that rectangle that we've got and that trapezium that we've got, if you draw a line going from the top of the rectangle down about parallel with the edge of the trapezium, if you do that on both sides. So rectangle, curved line going outwards, and a line going down from there where those 2 points intersect, roughly parallel with the trapezium. We're nearly done, but we've got a few important points to add on. That line that you've just drawn, well, the 2 lines that you've just drawn, above each of those lines, draw a series of thin rectangles, about 5 of them on each side, 5 on each side, let's say. Yeah, so that line that's coming down from your rectangle, 5 thin rectangles, and top each of those rectangles with circles. And if you want to be fancy about it, make it some bumpy circles. Don't worry, haven't lost the plot. It will all make sense. Final thing to do. You've got your 2 rectangles. You should have one on your horizontal line, one above your trapezium. In between there, draw a semicircle. And top that semicircle with a triangle. So what have people got? What does it look like? Who can get closest? If you can add in the comments, that's fine. If you can't, then it's okay. We can see what your pictures look like later. So let me show you what you should have drawn. Let's see how close you could have got. So I'm going to follow the exact same instructions I gave you, no deviations, and see where we get to. You got your horizontal line about 2/3 up, 1/3 down, topped with a rectangle. Either side of the rectangle is a triangle. Between the triangles, on top of the rectangle, a semicircle. Then we got the trapezium, which I cheatingly did show you, just so that we all knew we were on the same page, at least on one of the items, and top the trapezium with a rectangle. Going off from the rectangle, at the top we had some curves, some wavy lines like these sloping upwards. And where those 2 points meet from the top of the rectangle, parallel-ish to the trapezium, some lines going down. On either side, we had some thin rectangles, about 5 on each side. And we top those with circles, but to be fancy, some bumpy circles. And to finish, we had a semicircle with a triangle. Now, who got close to that? And why didn't you get exactly this? Was it my description? Was it the terminology that I used? Was it the words? Was it my assumptions in terms of your understanding, your how far you'd got along? Or was it all of this? And in fact, it was all of it. You see, the problem is with verbal communication, especially with training, all you've got is the person's intentions in terms of the person giving the training and the person's interpretation, the person that's receiving the training. And with verbal communications, your understanding in terms of what the person you're training knows, what they understand, is never going to be exactly what your is because of experience, because of the connections. But equally, if somebody's coming into a new industry, and so you've got a VA that's not been in your industry, or you've got staff that's coming into say an accounting or a mechanical background, they're not going to have the understanding of the terminology. So you may not want to use words such as mountains, sunsets, trees, because it might not be in their vocabulary. You might want to try and keep it simple. But because you're trying to keep it simple also means that what you're trying to convey isn't going to be complete. In addition to that, what you want as an output isn't going to be the same. So, for example, they might write notes as you're training them. Hopefully they'll write notes. But what they take away as important from your training won't be what you consider as important, because they won't have your experience to know which part of the process is important. Equally, to actually get every element across to them, you're going to have to sit with them as they go through the whole process. Now, if that's a service industry where there's a report, that's maybe a 6 hours report to try and show them what to build. Or you can risk giving them some instructions and write something down, you walking away, and you're coming back and finding that what they took away isn't what you wanted. This is where process maps come in. With process maps, you're not starting from a blank paper. You're starting from a defined set of instructions. What you feel is important in terms of the instructions are written down there. So there, yeah, they'll make the note, but they'll also have a document there that will say particularly what it is that you want them to follow. In addition to that, with the process map, you can create a training one, and so you can give them some fixed steps and say, at this point in the process, I want to review what you've done, and then you can make some judgments and some additional instructions. I'm not saying get rid of the verbal communication. Verbal communication is absolutely vital because it helps understanding their intentions, but the process map is a vital element to that, to make sure that your experience is passed on to them in terms of how you want them to do it, but also what are the critical steps. Somebody is sitting there, you can go through an hour's worth of talking, and in that hour, there may be 20 critical steps that you want to impart, but there'll be another 100 other things that you'll be mentioning. Those 20 critical steps are what you want to put in the process map so that you make sure that they are following it. So why are process maps essential for training? Now, this is not just with internal staff. Lots of small businesses will get VAs. And with the VA, you can go on Zoom, you can visit them and go through particular things. But unless you can give them an actual process map of how you'd like things to be done, you're going to end up with a lot of redundant time of things not happening the way you wanted, of results and reports and whatever else it is not occurring as expected. And then from there, you're wasting time. Well, process map, you're going to get closer to the final result straight away. When we left Bobby, she had all these ideas inside of her mind. She was running the business solo, but now she wants to expand. And Bobby's done the sensible thing. She's got WTS involved to actually write out her process maps. When we do this, we don't have those nice fancy colors because we don't know which come from Bobby's past experience, which ones she's trained on, and which ones are lessons learned. What we do know is what she's actually doing in terms of the business now. Now, a couple of things are going to happen as soon as you get to the point of creating the process maps. The first thing is that Bobby is going to see a business for the first time top down. She's going to see her business actually from an angle that she's not seen it before. And there'll be things that she'll immediately see that she'll know that she's wasting time on, that there'll be steps in there that were sensible when she started the business that are redundant now. She'll see elements that she can improve on. And she'll see that not because she's been blind within the business, but because when you're dealing with day-to-day, you just get on with the job. And it's very hard sometimes to take that step back and see what you're doing and how you're doing it and why you're doing it. Process map immediately will give her that. But equally, as I'm generating the process map with her, I'll ask her questions. I'll identify what the key decisions are within her business. And there'll be things that she hasn't even thought about as steps. And so she'll go, do this, and then later we do that. It's like, well, how do you get from that statement you said there to the statement you said at the end? What is it that you do? And I'll ask her questions. I'll say, what happens if this happens? What happens at this stage? And as we talked about earlier, there may be things that she'll go, that never came up with the business. That scenario there, it's extremely unlikely. Well, let's put it down as, see Bobby, if this happens, if it never happens, no one needs to even go down that road. She may say, oh, well, actually that happened twice last year, and first time I did it this way, it didn't really work. Second time I did it a slightly different way, but now on hindsight, I'd like to do it this third way, and we record that. Now we've got Bobby's experience written down again so that somebody else can follow it. But as mentioned, Bobby is going to be training people, and when you train people, another thing happens, and that's people will ask questions. Whether they've been in the industry or not, they'll have their own experiences, and they'll come into it and they'll be saying, why do you do this? And Bobby may just say, that's the way that we do it here. Fine, move on. Or Bobby may say, well, actually, never really thought about doing it a different way. How would you suggest, okay, this is how you do it. Okay, well, let's see how that works. See if that's something we want to take as a business on. And you'll get that development because you've got a document to base that development on. Without the process map, you can sit there and you can talk to them about it and you can make them assumptions, but you don't have a fixed document for you all to follow. So what's going to happen to Bobby's processes is they're going to morph. They're going to get some additional experiences. They're going to, whether that's from Bobby, whether that's from the generation, from myself or whoever's independently create the process map. So obviously it doesn't have to be WTS. I would like it to be. But somebody independent to the business, independent stakeholder or independent within, that can actually make judgments on what the viewing and what the process map looks like, is going to be a critical element to try and get the truthfulness of what the processes are. But new people coming in, VA, admin staff, whichever level they're coming in, they'll be able to bring their own questions and their own understanding. And again, it comes back to this being able to put your experiences on paper, because other people won't have your experiences. And if you ever want to leave your business for a short while, whether that's on holiday or sabbatical or whatever it is, having your experiences on paper to allow your business to continue temporarily without your being there is a absolute vital element to keep your business healthy and moving on. So second reason why process maps are essential is for that business improvement. We all do improvements across the board, whether that's with KPIs, so we look at our money on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, and we go, how's this working? How can we improve things? Process maps are the exact same in terms of business improvements. You can actually view it, but even more important than that, if you're planning to make a change within your business, so you plan to bring in a new system, you can map out what theoretically that's going to do to your business on the process map. You can compare before and after and see what the improvements are, and if that's actually a system that you want to bring in. On the other side, if you have a change within the business that doesn't work, you've got a document of previous revisions of how the processes used to look, and you can take that step back if needs be. Again, without the process maps to try and remember how things were done, to try and envisage how a change such as a new system will affect the business, it's almost impossible to do that accurately without the business, without the process maps. So why process maps essential? Training is a vital element, having your experience in there, and business improvements. Now, right at the start, we chose between Bobby and Bob. Now, Bob went to degree straight after school. He went into IT, worked there just for a few short years, and he decided to go alone. He's 12 years Bobby's junior, and so they started their businesses at the same time, just Bob was a lot younger when he did it. Bob, therefore, is a unique person. He's not Bobby. He's got a different background. He's got a different way of doing things or looking at the universe. But it's been a successful year for Bob, just as has for Bobby, because it's COVID and everything else like that. Remote IT is up in the world, and so he is expanding the exact same way that Bobby was. Now, he's done training, same as Bobby, but it's different training, and his takeaways from those trainings are going to be different. His unique elements into those marketing and sales and money are going to be slightly different to Bobby's, maybe significantly different. And he didn't write out his process maps. He did his training verbally because he wanted to be more hands-on, and he is a lot busier than Bobby because he is quite hands-on, trying to check everyone's doing what they're meant to be doing and how they're meant to be doing it. And he's finding it difficult to move his business forward because he's constantly monitoring what his staff are doing, and he's constantly trying to do everything they was doing before. And having 3 new people doesn't seem to actually give him any extra time. He's noticed online that Bobby seems to be getting more clients. She seems to be having more conversations, seems to be more comfortable with things, and he's trying to work out what it is that Bobby's doing that's different to him. And one thing that he's heard is that it's the people that make the business. And he makes this false assumption that if he can get the staff that Bobby's got, it's going to make all the difference. And the problem he's got is he's just got the wrong staff. The staff aren't doing what he wants. They always need constant monitoring. And what he really needs is Bobby's staff. So he goes on Facebook and finds out that all of Bobby's staff like bacon. And he gives them an offer of free bacon sandwiches every morning and a pay rise because he thinks that having those people in the business is going to make a significant difference for improvements. There's 3 people that's got IT experience that's available, and Bobby hires them. Now, just because we've changed the staff doesn't mean that the processes are going to change. No. You see, Bobby's still going to follow her process maps. She's still got that document. The 3 staff coming in may have some experience that may enhance the process maps, but they may not. Either way, Bobby's still going to train them on her processes. She's got the process maps to follow, and she can even train out any bad habits and things. And she's got a document that her new staff are going to follow. Similarly, Bob isn't going to get 3 people coming in that's only going to fit fantastically within his business and do everything and have the same sort of success as Bobby. One, because they won't be bringing the process maps. At staff level, process maps may seem as an unnecessary extra because that's not how people envisage the day-to-day. But in terms of management, in terms of the structure of the business, they're vital, as we have discussed. And so Bob also isn't just going to let them do the wrong thing. He's not going to bring in 3 people and go and run my business for me. He's still going to instill on them some things that he thinks are critical. And so he's still going to do monitoring. He's still going to be doing the running around. He's still going to be wondering why people aren't doing exactly what he's doing and following his exact experience. Now, this all leads to the fact that the processes is the business, not the people. I'm going to come to that statement in a minute because I know that's controversial in some circumstances, but it's the process maps that represent the DNA of the business, and that DNA comes down from the owner. That DNA comes down in terms of what the values are for the business, what their goals are, and all those are represented in the process map, bringing up the DNA so that the business can function without the owner there temporarily, because that DNA from the owner is instilled in the process map that the staff are trained on, that the staff then follow. So why are process maps essential? Training, we talked about having that way of getting across knowledge and information in an efficient manner. Business improvement, the fact you can see the process maps top down and you can actually make judgments on them. But number one, they represent the business's DNA. They represent how the business functions, what makes that business unique to any other business, what makes it successful or not. Just because you've got a process map doesn't mean you'll be successful, but it does mean that you've got a foundation stone to make changes to make your business successful. I always say they're there to allow you to reach your potential. And what that potential is something which the process map can't dictate. But if the potential is there to have a successful business, the process map will allow you to achieve that. Now, Bobby is successful. She continues. Bob was never on her radar other than the fact that she'd lost some good staff, but it was never anything that she was ever concerned about. And she's expanded further. Earlier I said that people aren't the business. This often troubles people because people's favorite place to work within their career, it's always been about the people. And that is correct. In terms of the business culture, that is people related. But that's because the part you remember from your day-to-day is the conversations you've had with people, whether that was conversations you had about the weekend or about a sports team or about the family. those conversations that you have throughout the day where you learn about people, they're the things that you remember. You don't remember the day-to-day working because a lot of that is repetitive. A lot of that is, there are elements in there where, you're just doing it based on the process map, based on your experience, based on lots of things. But they're not something you take away and 5 years later you remember the exact thing you did with a certain spreadsheet. But you might remember a conversation. That's the culture side. And that is important in terms of having a business that people want to work at. But that's not what makes the business successful. That's not the processes that actually deliver the end result to the client. But where people are important to the business is in terms of longevity. And so Tim here, Tim has been really good on the marketing side. And Tim has gone off and done some marketing courses, maybe even a marketing degree, and has come back, because that's all been done under Bobby, and has come back. And Bobby's now, because she's expanding enough to have departments, is giving Tim the marketing department to do. And in this sense, when you get to this sort of level, this is when people do have an impact on the processes. And so when Tim comes back, he's going to start making some changes because, as we talked about earlier, marketing was never Bobby's strong suit. It was the core IT. And so having somebody that's now got some marketing knowledge, has got some academic knowledge in there as well as on-the-job knowledge, is going to make a significant difference. When we did that picture earlier, if I gave some proper instructions, not the shapes and directions, if I gave some proper instructions and I gave that to a actual artist to do, they could make that from the picture that I had into a work of art with some gorgeous snow-capped mountains and some flowing waterfalls and some boats and a wooded land. They could enhance the instructions I gave them and not just work with them, but take them forward. And that's what happens within businesses once you start passing off these processes to people that have the experience. But that doesn't remove the DNA. And one of the reasons why that doesn't move the DNA is because usually the people that we work with, that we can work with, have a very similar thought process, have a very similar makeup in terms of how to do things. Not identical, no one's identical like fingerprints, but they'll have an understanding of how those process maps work on an innate level because there'll be a very similar way of thinking. And so when those people are making those changes, enhancements, that way of thinking will still be in there. So Bobby may be involved in terms of an overview level, in terms of what changes are marketing, but she knows she's not a marketing expert. That's why she's gave that role to Tim. And so from that level, she'll understand those changes, she'll understand the benefits of them, but she's not going to impede them, and she's going to maybe question them and have a dialogue, but the department could be Tim's, and as an individual within the business, that is how he's going to move things on. So those are the three reasons why process maps are an essential foundation stone to all businesses, but especially small businesses, to allow you to have that ability to expand, be scalable, to bring in initially VAs to do core parts of your business with a degree of passing on your experience with the process map, but also when you start bringing in staff, to get that communication across so that they're not just got a blank page, they've got somebody they can actually follow. And as your business expands, scalable, turning in different departments, you've got elements there you can rely back on at all times and actually work with. And for that reason, on the 20th to 24th of September, I will be running a course for businesses to create the first process map. And so this isn't a course on why process maps are essential. That's what today was about. This is about understanding the creation. What are the critical questions to ask when creating a process map? What is it that you need to think about to make sure that you don't miss those elements that are key to your business, so that you've got that experience written down in a way that somebody else can follow? You won't need any process mapping software. Computer with Zoom, preferably Microsoft Office, because Word and PowerPoint, you've got your various shapes that you can use there to make a process map. But pencil and paper, post-it notes will all be sufficient to do that. The course will be made up of 5 sessions in the morning, 9 till 10. Those morning sessions will be focused on key learnings to help you understand how to create the process map, and 8 till 9 in the evening. And those will be discussion based. There'll be ones where I can have more one-to-ones in breakout rooms with various different businesses to help you take those learnings from the morning into practice and move them into developing that process map, which is going to be essential. The morning sessions are going to be recorded, so at any point in the day you'll be able to pick those up and go through them and follow them. The evening ones won't be recorded because I want to be specialized to your business, and so be talking certain things that will be key to your business that shouldn't be available to others. But equally on that front, it's important to completely lost my train of thought there. Sorry about that. It's coming up to the hour mark. Equally on the front of the creation, it's important to be able to be open about your business, about the structure of the business, about the organization. And so those evening sessions are going to be that discussion, having access to my insights and experiences, and being able to generate that process. So at the end of the week, you're going to have at least one core process of your business generated, from which you can take that experience and move it on further, or be involved with WTS further. And there'll be other opportunities, exclusive opportunities amongst those, to help your business in all those things I mentioned right at the start, from the organization to the processes to the systems, or the administration. All those elements will have things that WTS can help you with, which you'll find out more on those sessions. In a few minutes, I will be opening up a planning session. This is WTS planning, and with WTS planning, which is only on Zoom, so you'll have to go to Eventbrite to go into that. It won't be live on Facebook. We're talking about how to plan. So this isn't what to plan. This is to bring your plans to me for us to have discussions in terms of how you bring your long-term plan into the near future, into the monthly, into the weekly, and keep you accountable. And so again, you'll need to go to Eventbrite. What I will do is put links in Facebook for you to do that. Anyone wishing to join me to go through that, feel absolutely free to do that. So thank you for your time today. I hope that has been useful for those either watching live or recording, and I will leave you all with that today. Thank you. I appreciate your time.